All right. So Jane Epstein is a sibling sexual abuse survivor, expert in advocate who speaks publicly and provides guidance and tools for prevention and victim recovery. Jane spent 40 years in a continual state of dissociation. She was in and out of therapy, and despite marrying and being blessed with 2 children, she became depressed and suicidal. Sobriety and self-reflection led her to write her story, and that is where she encountered the answers. Now Jane shares her story via podcast interviews and memoir that is in a progress to remove the shame from sibling sexual abuse survivors and let them know they are not alone. Jane's passion, work, and life mission are to bring awareness of the staggering statistic of sibling sexual abuse, a largely ignored segment of sexual abuse, and make body safety conversation between parents and children an everyday conversation. It's a very important topic. Not many people, as you say, talk about it. And I would love to hear your story, but before, we don't hear many people talk about, as you said, about sibling sexual abuse and how likely it is. What statistic, if you can share with us, if there's something that we should be concerned? What do you think about statistic? I don't know if you even look on the statistics.
Right. I am a big fan of Brad Watts. He recently wrote a book, Sibling Sexual Abuse, and I've actually been able to interview him, and I read his books. And the studies, the most recent studies, are around 2002. So we are really behind on the studies. Mm-hmm. But according to those studies, sibling sexual abuse and child-on-child sexual abuse. So when I talk about sibling, I'm talking about cousin, step-sibling, older adolescents. Makes up about 35 to 40% of sexual abuse. So it's a really big number, and that's the number that we know about. And Brad Watts talks about it being a silent epidemic, and it truly is a silent epidemic. I have 3 to 5 girls and parents reach out to me daily, struggling with this, finding out about it, discovering it. So it's a big deal that we need to talk about.
Yes. So yeah, let's talk about it. And we would love to hear your story. You can share as much as you want or as little as you want. And we start from there, and we'll have more conversation about it.
Sure. I can kind of give you the short version of my story, and then we can dive a little deeper.
Because we probably would have a lot of questions. So yeah.
Right. So the best way that I can describe my story is I feel like my story is a Rubik's Cube. It started out of order. And I didn't understand that my life was out of order until I was about 45 years old. And when I was about 45 years old, this is kind of where my journey really started. I had been in marriage counseling for about 5 years. I was still incredibly depressed. And I recall a specific day, I had picked my children up from school, and I sat down on the bottom of the steps. They'd had their snacks and they'd done their homework. And I was holding my 8-year-old son's hands. And I was looking in his eyes, and I just knew in my heart that my life was shrinking, that I was leaving this life. I'm very careful. I was not suicidal, but I wanted to die. And I had to make a conscious decision in that moment because I knew I couldn't do that to my children or my family. And I made a conscious decision that I would quit drinking and that I would start digging deep. I decided at that moment, there's something inside of me. I've tried to fix all the outside things and it's not working. There's something inside of me. So I sat down and I started writing from the very beginning. And it was at that moment that I realized that I had been sexually abused by an older sibling from age 6 to 12. And I had known that all those years, but I'd put it in a little box like a lot of survivors. But for sibling sexual abuse for survivors, I think sometimes we think, well, they were a kid themselves. So maybe it's just 2 kids being curious. I can't be that messed up over it. He was my brother. He wasn't a stranger. It couldn't have been that bad. So I put it aside. And I started Googling sibling sexual abuse, and I realized there was very little out there. So this was maybe 7 years ago. There's more out there now, thank goodness. And I thought, I can't be the only one. I can't be the only 6-year-old girl who went through this. And my brother can't be the only 12-year-old boy who went through this. It just can't be. So I started digging deeper and deeper and discovering that no, this is a huge problem that's been going on forever. So I felt like, well, someone's got to talk about it. And I kept getting the nudge that I needed to talk about it. So I started talking about it, and more people started reaching out to me. And I got to a point where, okay, we can't stop talking about it. This has to continue forward. And that's kind of where I'm at now. And I would say within the last year, I'm finally meeting my people, finally meeting parents, and we're finally mobilizing. I feel like we can come together and we can actually make a difference. So that's where I am in my advocacy. But if you want to go back to my story, which is kind of complicated, I can go back to that too, back to the Rubik's Cube where I started, if you like.
Mhm. So you never realized until that point that's what happened with you. And even at that point, how did you know that you should investigate on sexual abuse or sibling sexual abuse? Did you hear people start talking about it? Why you point on that? Why you didn't look at anything else?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. I didn't.
Why you didn't look at anything else? You start investigating particularly that event in your life.
That's a great question. So that kind of takes me back to the writing and the Rubik's Cube. So once I started writing and I wrote down about the sibling sexual abuse. So I was 6 to 12 years old. I was sexually abused. And that made me very hypersexual. I became angry, but I didn't understand why. And that took me down a path of being very promiscuous. And through that promiscuity, I became a stripper. And as a stripper, I found power. I felt validated. I felt pretty for a couple years. But then I started sliding down a slippery slope of I was feeling anger, and I was like slapping the patrons for any excuse. And the anger was still rising inside of me. And I just figured I just have a temper. I was getting ready to slide down a very slippery slope, and I sensed it in me that if I couldn't, I wouldn't be able to be hurt anymore, or I wasn't going to come back. And it was at that point that a gentleman came into the club, and he tipped me. And I'd seen him before; he'd caught my attention, but he tipped me. And he said to me, "What are you doing here? You look like the kind of girl I could take home and meet my mom." And I latched onto that. I said, "You always tip me and you leave." And he said, I'll stay. And I said, okay. I raced back, changed clothes, put on a little makeup, maybe put a breath mint in, and I raced back to the bar, and he's sitting at the bar and he's drinking his usual drink. And I climbed up to the bar stool, and I had one of those moments that was love at first sight. There was something in me. I knew I was going to marry this man. And we did get married. And I love that man with every bone of my body. But I don't think it was a healthy relationship because I put everything onto him. I needed that man in my life, and I needed his validation. It was a lot for him. And I started feeling depressed and feeling like I'd given up my control 7 years into the marriage. But it was right about that time that he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. And through that process, I had to give up control, that I had no control over what was going to happen with him. And he did end up passing away. Now, at the time, looking back, I understand this now. At the time, I was experiencing complicated grief. I was experiencing grief on top of grief. I was experiencing grief at the loss of my innocence as a child, grief of losing my childhood, basically, and then loss of my best friend. So it was a very complicated grief process for me. Also, looking back, I didn't understand that I was also experiencing joy. I was alive for the first time, because it was so much pain that I couldn't numb it. I was alive, I was feeling, and I actually felt joy. I didn't know that at the time. Now I can look back and process that. I began dating again, and I met my husband that I'm married to now, and we had 2 children, and life was pretty good. And then some memories came back in my head from my childhood sexual abuse. And I woke up angry. The next morning, I woke up angry and more volatile, more depressed. So as I wrote my story out, I could understand. I thought, oh, okay, that's why I was promiscuous. Oh, that's why I was depressed. And I kind of all went back to square one. And that's how I found that answer for me. Long answer, sorry.
Yeah, but so we have to know sometimes where all these behaviors coming from, right? So if you don't evaluate our life, we would never investigate it and never look back, because our memories sometimes shut down inside of our brain, and
Yes.
some memories we don't even have, because that's our brain protection from trauma, just to bear deep inside, and sometimes we don't even remember what's happened to us and we behave certain way. So
Right.
that your experience affect your behavior in life and lifestyle. How did it affect, or even if it affect your mental health and physical health? What do you think? And if you want to share anything.
Wow. Well, the mental health, I was promiscuous. I was angry. I was rebellious. And we thought, oh, she's just the third child. My parents are going through a divorce. That's all in the normal range if a parents are going through divorce and you're the third child. So that's how it affected me in that regard. I would say that I spent a lot of my life numb, a lot of my life not seen, not understood, because I didn't want to see me. I didn't want to understand me. I thought I was icky. And I thought that I couldn't be validated without male attention. So I always had a boyfriend. I was always seeking male attention. And then later in life, I think it kind of caught up to me, because I was living a life. I had 2 children, stay-at-home mom, husband. We'd been in therapy. We tried to figure out all the answers. And the therapist said to me, you know, we've gone through all these layers, you know, tried to fix your husband. I tried to fix him, and nothing is changing. Your anger does not match the circumstances. And it was at that moment that I did share in counseling, my brother sexually abused me. I was terrified to say anything, because I really, in my mind, I thought it couldn't have messed me up. It couldn't be that, but we had turned over everything. And I did not want to say anything in counseling, because then I thought, oh, my husband's going to look right at me and say, I knew it. I knew it wasn't me. It's you. And I thought, then he's going to blame all the marriage problems on me. But instead, something very different happened. I was known, that my truth was known, and my husband accepted me even though.
And supported you through the whole process, right? Did it affect your sexual life, your experience that you had in childhood? So that's why you went for marriage counseling, or you had a relationship problem? So
Relationship problems.
But not sexual problem.
I'm sorry?
Not sexual problem, like not sexual life, your experiences, did it affect you anyway?
They did. Here's where I got remarried after my late husband. I got remarried, and things seemed, I hate to use the word normal. Normal's not a good word. We were married. We had 2 children.
Acceptable,
acceptable, maybe, yes. And then something happened in my marriage, in the bedroom, that triggered a memory of my childhood sexual abuse, and it would not go away. And it was at that point that I really kind of shut down with intimacy. I have not been able to go back. I cannot be intimate, and touch for me, kissing, holding hands, a lot of anxiety there for me. I think that's a huge hurdle in my relationship. My life is not all perfect. So when somebody touches me, I feel like Spider-Man. I just want to jump to the ceiling and stick there and hang out there for a bit. I don't have any trouble touching and holding my children. Hugging, I want to hug people, but I kind of go into that stiff stick figure type person. So that's been a huge, huge hurdle for me. And my husband, he stands by me. I don't know how, but he does.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm curious. In my work, I'm integrative mind-body therapy therapist, right?
Yeah.
So we include hands-on work. And I'm curious, have you done any work for yourself, what we call the neck down, where you get into the trauma that's hiding and harboring in your cellular memory?
I haven't done it specifically for that. I've done Reiki and I'll do massages, but I haven't done anything seeking that outcome. I have not.
And with your experience, massage and Reiki, do you feel anything in your body? Do you experience anything after the session? And if you have any pain in your body, that's my question. That would be like manifestation of your trauma as a physical symptom.
Yeah, I think with Reiki in particular, I've definitely felt a lot in Reiki, and whoever does the Reiki, they sense it as well.
Mhm.
Massage, this is kind of goes into my way of healing, my way of processing my trauma. I spent a lot of years exercising like crazy, running. I trained for marathons because I was trying to outrun that trauma. And by the way, it doesn't work. I ended up with blisters and injuries, but I spent years trying to outrun that trauma. And that's why I started going to massages. That, and when my late husband passed, I made a promise to myself that I would get massages. So massages, I've been sticking with the same person for multiple years. I am able to, there are times I leave my body, and because I have to in order to protect that. So I have a lot of work to do. And I know that, and in the mind-body connection. And I would like to share this with you as well. Through my exercising, crazy exercising, spin, running, I discovered another form of exercise. And it's it's like a slow movement. It's almost like yoga. And I did that for 5 years. And somehow it slowly connected my mind and my body. And I woke up kind of one day and realized that, oh, the slow movements, the exercise, the breathing, it did connect my head to my body.
So yeah, when you do some slow exercises, that's parasympathetic nervous system that balance your brain compared to a run or some vigorous exercise, which is increase your sympathetic. That's what our stress response. And and so you mentioned marriage counselor and also massage and Reiki. What other healing modalities you've been using in your process of recovery?
Writing
Right.
it down. Writing it down has been healing, and there are times that I just have to set a timer and know that I can't go that deep. And sometimes I'll go back and I'll read it, and I can say to myself, wow, that really happened. I really lived through that. That's been very healing. I feel like that kind of gets it out of my body. And for me, sharing my story and getting the feedback from other survivors who aren't ready to come forward, but saying, thank you for sharing your story, because I have felt very alone out there. Not many people are talking about sibling sexual abuse. If I talk to people at a dinner party, because they'll ask me what I do, and I'll say I'm an advocate for sibling sexual abuse, and the reaction is just, oh no, I don't want to see it or hear it. So I have felt very alone for a long time, but I will say that sharing my story publicly is helping, and I'm being truly known and truly understood, and finding other survivors, and now they don't feel alone. And that's really the ultimate goal, is that if no one's talking about it, then everybody feels alone. So I'm hoping that we're slowly bringing about more awareness, and I appreciate your platform. I appreciate you taking on this tough topic. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you. Welcome, and thank you for sharing your story. I want to ask you about your family. Yeah, when you realize that happened to you in your childhood, have you shared your story or concern with your family member and your sibling?
I love this question, and I'm glad you remembered to ask it. When I was about 24, I did share with my mom. I only had the words to say, because I was struggling in my marriage, and she said, quit blaming your marriage on your childhood. And I said, you don't understand. He messed with me. I couldn't say the words that he sexually abused me, that he molested me. That took a long time to say. And she cried. She said, I believe you. How did this happen? Where was I? We tried to do all the right things. And then I told her that I was going to start going public with it. And she got very concerned for him and his family. And we had words. I said, this is about me. It's not about his family. Because at that point, I was still feeling very, very angry. And I had pushed my sibling and his wife and his children away. I had put them all in an angry box that they didn't all belong in, but that's what I needed to do. And this is kind of complicated. I have to go back a little bit because I told my mom when I was 24, but when I was 21, my brother who sexually abused me had a child, and I went to go visit that child. And he pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, I'm really sorry for what I did to you when you were a kid." And I thought, what did you do to me when I was a kid? What do you mean? And then I recalled, and my response was, it's okay, I participated, because I wasn't ready for whatever it was. And he had opened that memory, and then I put it back away. So going back to when I started to decide I was going to come public, I actually called my brother. I'd sent him a letter of forgiveness, and he was shocked. He said, I said I was sorry, and I kind of thought it was over. He said, I didn't understand it was still in your life. And I said, yeah, it's been very much in my life. But I said, I think that we're not alone, and I think that we need to go public. And he said, I'll support you. I'll do whatever I can to help you heal. Now, this is very unique. One, it's unique that he apologized, and two, it's unique that he understood that I was going to go public. And he has stuck by that. And I can ask him questions. I've been asking him questions. I would say, were you sexually abused? How did this start? And he remembers the very first time it started. He was not sexually abused. He was a child who did not have a place to go with questions, and I was available. And so it did start with curiosity, and his body responded the way it's supposed to respond. And that's how it started. So he's been very honest with those questions. And I will ask him, I have this vivid memory. Is this true? And he will tell me, but he also doesn't give me more information, knowing that I have enough. I don't need more. So that's been really helpful. Now, also, I told you that I had pushed his whole family away. He has children, and one of their children sent me a graduation notice, and I got the notice, and I thought, really? And I thought, fine, I'll send you a gift. I did send them a gift. And the letter that I got back was, thank you so much for responding. I thought you hated me, and I thought you didn't ever want a relationship with me. And it was at that moment that I realized, okay, this is becoming generational, and it's not their fault. So I've been able to rebuild relationships with all of his children. I have a relationship with him. I have a relationship with my mom. My father passed away before I came public.
Do you know if that experience of your brother's experience affected his life?
You know, I haven't asked that question. I have not asked that question. I feel like he will share it with me when he's ready. I will say this, and I have looked at the statistics. They say that statistically, just because you sexually abuse another child as a child does not mean you grow up to be abusive. And I have point blank asked him, and I have asked his children, and I've gotten a resounding no, that nothing has happened. And I believe that. And I believe that also because he supports me in my endeavors. He sees this as a society, a problem. He knows it's a problem. He knows it's a big deal. He knows it's happening in other homes. So he's very supportive. So, but as far as how it's impacted his life, I have some, I would call them rumors or secondhand knowledge, but I don't have any firsthand knowledge, and I have not personally asked him.
Because usually if he sees as something wrongdoing because he apologized to you, it's probably affected his life on a mental level, or even relationship with his wife, because he probably thinks guilty about something that he did before. And if he doesn't heal, so it's also can affect his life on the long run, same as it affected you. So you were both affected when you were children, and it's definitely affected everyone's.
Right. Which is a great point, which I talk to my sibling, and this is why I talk about this. It tears whole families apart. It's not just about the survivor, it's about the person who, and I don't have a word for them. I don't want to call them perpetrator, the abuser. I don't know. I haven't found that right word, but that person who acts, it tears whole families apart, the parents, the cousins, everything. So it's very important to me.
And you mentioned something about normal curiosity. So what's the difference between normal curiosity and sexual abuse? So when that's the line when you cross from curiosity to abuse?
Yes, and I have been studying this, and then I have survivors reach out to me, and I understand why it's such a tricky topic. Because the books and the psychiatrists say that generally curiosity is normal in children, absolutely. But curiosity usually between children of the same age, same size, and same developmental level. And it happens maybe spontaneously once or twice, a game of doctor, and there's giggling involved, and then they're done. Sexual abuse, according to the books, is generally between children of different ages, around 2 years apart, different sizes, and different developmental levels. However, I'm getting survivors reaching out to me saying he was only 8 months older than me, and he did this to me, or this younger child did this to me. So I'm gonna rattle some cages here and say that I think that pornography is changing things. I believe that. I think that kind of a general rule is if there's force, coercion, or if something sexual happens that a child is not developmentally ready for, that's sexual abuse.
Mhm. Yeah, so it's a very big topic and still confusing topics for so many people.
Yes.
You have any
People reach out
questions?
to me and say, was this sexual abuse? And if it's not clear cut, sometimes I'm not sure. So you kind of have to go back to what was the touch involved, or what were your feelings? Are you fearful? Are you anxious?
So what would be the risk factors or contributing factors to child-on-child or sibling sexual abuse? What's the factors?
Right. I think the first thing as parents that we need to do, we need to educate our children when they are 2 and 3 years old. Start reading to them in those body safety books. Start talking to them about body parts. Start talking about body boundaries. I know Kimberly King, she's part of your group, and she's got that great book, A Kid's Guide to Body Safety. I Said No. My favorite body safety book. So that's the first thing. We have to start educating our kids when they are young. And I strongly believe that we should read to them 5-10 different books on body safety and secrets. That way they hear it 10 different ways, 10 different times. And then another key factor is we don't stop reading to them when they're 5 and 7 years old. We need to keep checking in with them. Another factor is when kids enter puberty around 10 to 14, that is a critical age. We really need to check in with our kids. We need to make sure that they have sex education. We need to make sure they have places to go for questions. I have great books on my site that I love. It's called The 30 Days of Sex Talks. Yes, I read them to my kids. We put them on the calendar and we read them. I'm not selling these books. I didn't write these books, but I have read all these books to my kids. So as teens, they need to have an open door. They need to have a place to come and ask their questions, or they're going to find pornography. And when they see pornography, their head says, okay, I'm not supposed to be looking at this, but my body feels good. And they're going to find a place to reenact that. And who's available? Younger cousins, younger siblings, and that can lead to sexual abuse. And then another situation is if the child themselves has been sexually abused. And I think, again, they can be trying to recreate that, or it can be a power thing for them. Those are some of the top. There's not one specific thing, but there's also some socialization things and some dysfunction within the family that can all lead to it as well.
Also, when parents are not available, as you said, right, for your brother, he turned to you as a person that he probably thought it was a trust issue relationship between you and him in that age, because he didn't have a relationship with his parents, so you don't have anybody to interact or have a relationship. So
Right.
for him, probably it was an expression of kind of love. And that's how often we think that way, that's how we express our love.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I don't know if I can say it was an expression of love, and I don't know if he would say that or not. But I have heard that some siblings have reported that their siblings said that it was an act of love.
Mhm.
So it gets very murky and very so many murky lines within this topic.
Right, and can go different ways.
Yes.
The question also interesting. I don't know if you ever anybody ever asked you, does sibling sexual abuse consider incest? And what's the difference if it's not?
This is a really tough question for me. I struggle with the word incest.
Me too.
So why?
I don't
what's
know
different?
why. And I'm actually a board member of Incest Aware. And And that's one of those words that I keep pushing away. I'm going to tell you, I don't have that answer. And I know there's been times it's come up in interviews before, and people cringe at that word. They really do. And for me, I question, okay, was it sexual abuse? Was it incest? Because there was never any intimacy to that degree. So was it just abuse? Was it incest? So maybe one of your panel members would have that answer. It's
Mhm.
So I guess is the line for you penetration? Is that what you're
For
basing on?
me, I think it could be. But how do we delineate that? How does that, is that really a line when it comes to this type of abuse?
Yeah, well, as you began so eloquently to set us up with the way to listen to your presentation is not to use the word normal, because there is no normal. There's what's happened to me and there's what's happening to other people. And if it doesn't look the same, it doesn't mean it's not something that needs attention or to be addressed.
Beautiful.
So
I love that.
Yeah, we get caught up in language. And sometimes it's a way to dismiss things. Oh, well, it's not that. So, but wherever there's violation and people are walking with trauma, mentally, physically, both, it doesn't matter what it's called. It's not normal.
I appreciate that insight. I love how you're able to word that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So another question I have, why, and we know, like you said about statistics, statistics might be not all numbers that are out there, because people, first of all, don't come out and talk about it, or they don't report it. So probably numbers are much higher. And why you think people not come forward and talk about it?
There are several reasons. First of all, a common response I hear, and I've been very public about 5 or 6 years, and I still get responses of people seeing a post and saying, oh my gosh, I'm crying. I thought I was alone. A big one is, I thought I was alone. Nobody's talking about this. I thought I was alone is number one. Nobody's talking about it. So people are not coming forward because nobody's talking about it. You don't want to be the only one. I feel like I'm supposed to come forward because I have that letter of forgiveness, and my brother believes me and my parents believe me and they support me. So I feel like it's my responsibility to come forward. I think another huge reason, I have survivors or people who are actually going through it right now reach out to me. They don't want to hurt the family. They don't want to hurt their mom. They don't want to break their mom's heart. They don't want to tear the family apart. That's a huge one. And they message me and say, it's okay, I will carry it for now. And I'm also a member of a mom's group on Facebook, moms who have gone through this, discovered it in their family. And I've asked them, are you glad that you know? And 100% have said, yes, we are so glad our children told us. We wish they would have told us sooner because we could have made it stop. Yes, it's been hard. Yes, it's been ripping the family apart. Yes, it's a lot of work, but we are glad that we know. So those are the two that I keep hearing again and again.
And I'd like to jump in here about how things get passed down through families that don't get fixed or healed. We know now through epigenetics that abuse is passed through the gene pool, or the energy pool, however it manifests. And if we don't stop it, it continues.
Right.
It's called transgenerational trauma.
Right.
So it's not only genetics, but the behavior in the family, and it's transferred to another generation, to our kids and so on. So until we recover, until we stop at certain generation, it can continues. Continues and continues.
Right.
Another question, very interesting. I know that a lot of sexual abuse involve legal actions and suits, but how you do if it's happened between two children? Is it anywhere you can take a legal authority or even legal actions?
Right. And this is out of my arena. Going to be honest with you. I will say that in Brad Watts' Sibling Sexual Abuse, he does walk you through it. Also, there's another book that's called, I have it up here, A Mom's Guide to, it's called What Do I Do Now? A Mom's Guide. I have it. I can reach over and grab it. Also, stopitnow.org. They have a lot greater resources. And I think that's another reason that families don't report. Parents feel shame and embarrassment, and they feel alone. That's the thing. We need parents to understand that this is a silent epidemic and that they are not alone, and that they are embarrassed. They are afraid to come forward as well. And they love both of their children. What do you do? I think the biggest thing is that if we report it, I think Stop It Now particularly walks you through a reporting process and get both of your children help, both of them, get the whole family help. So the legal process, that is outside of my arena, but those 3 resources, I can get the name of the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so people are asking about the resources they can get, and
What?
anything you want to grab the book?
It's right here. I can see it. Hang on one second.
Go ahead, reach it. And so if anybody who listen, you have any questions for Jane, we are finishing. So yeah.
What do I do now?
Mm-hmm. Survivor guide. Yes.
Yeah. What do I do now? And see, it's all tabbed. I have it all marked up. And then Brad Watts' Sibling Sexual Abuse book. It's like a handbook for me. Look at this.
Yeah. So and tell us about what do you do now? Like where you're speaking, about your website, what education do you have or provide to others?
Right now, I'm sharing through platforms like this, and I was just accepted, which is huge, for a TEDx talk in Boca Raton, Florida, which is a huge platform, great opportunity. This topic of sibling sexual abuse, they want me to talk about sibling sexual abuse, and I feel like this is our moment. This is for us. This is not my story. This is not me. I believe in a team effort. So my website was really just trying to find other survivors, and I share my story on my website, and I share my favorite books on my website and my favorite websites on my website. I do have some exciting news. Just recently, and a couple of moms have reached out to me, and one mom has done a lot of work on building a site for sibling sexual abuse survivors, parents, perpetrators, abusers. I still don't have that right word. That's exciting that we are coming to this, because I have parents reach out to me, and I have to send them different websites, different books. And so I think that's huge. I'm super excited that I feel like we are building momentum. We're going to build that platform for survivors. So that's what I do. I'm just sharing my story to find other people. And I've been sharing my story for a while now, and it feels like it's finally starting to pay off.
And somebody posted on the chat the website stopitnow.org. Stopitnow.org. Some questions from the participants. Catherine, did you question your sexuality from your experience, whatever you had?
I only questioned it for a period of time, but that is actually very common, because if you're sexually abused by a male and you're a male and you think I must be gay because my body responded the way it was supposed to respond, that's natural too. Or girls, if their body responds, they don't know who's touching their body. So that's actually a common question, and I've heard that before. For me, I only questioned that for a little bit, because again, I became very hypersexual, and I tried to touch another female.
And some people go opposite way, so they become asexual and they don't want to have any relationship with anybody. I think Susan has a lot of experience with that, right? Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at now. I was hypersexual and now I'm asexual.
Yeah, so we need to balance.
Yeah.
And until we resolve all our issues on a different levels, and that's how I approach healing. You have to address on different issues, not only from physiological. That's where I started my journey and helping my clients, but also on a spiritual, energetic, and mental, and all other levels. So yeah, and it's sometimes takes a long time. It's a longer process of recovery and healing. Yeah.
Yes.
So we all on the process of healing. And I
Yeah,
think,
we are.
yeah. And particularly as a women, as a whole group of, so we've all been abused on some level, physical or emotional or sexual, generational. So yeah, that's our I guess, our mission. Another question I have, so people want to know, tell more about the 30 days challenge, I think you mentioned.
Oh, the 30-day, I have them all here. 30 days of sex talks. They're on,
Okay.
these are all on my website. I also have some pornography books, and then there's how to talk to your children about porn. And the 30 days of sex talks, what I love about them is that there's a series of them from age 3 to 7.
Okay, so the age related, which is
Yeah, 12. Yeah. Like I said, my favorite books are on my website. Yes, I've read every single one of them. These, and then Kimberly King's book, and then Toodles the Turtle is one of my favorites. It talks about secrets. If you just get those 2 books plus these, and then maybe there's another one, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. Yeah, I'm very passionate about this. Can you tell?
Yeah, great resources. Yes, and thank you for putting all these resources. People asking, what's your website? You can mention.
Yeah, my website is complicatedcourage.com.
So what courage you have now? Courage, like what you, when you say courage, what does it mean for you?
First of all, I think the next step of courage will be actually getting on that TEDx stage in front of 1,000 member audience. And a courage to keep going forward and keep advocating, and courage to know, to say, I don't know. When I have survivors reach out to me and say, I don't know, and I don't have the resource for you, that's hard.
And how do you feel about TEDx, about bringing your topic to the big masses?
It's time. It's time. We need to bring this to the forefront.
Yeah.
If anybody have any more questions, you can unmute yourself if you want to ask personally, or put in the chat. And I know, Susan, you have something for us today. So what Susan usually prepare for each our meeting, talk about women who change our life, who change society, on societal level, on cultural level, and kind of empower us as a women in a whole. So who's the
bad girl?
Who's the bad girl today?
We call it the Bad Girl series. And I picked Margaret Sanger because she has been such a stand for autonomy to our bodies. And I think that's what we're looking at today with you as well, is, where is it that my body belongs to me and I have say and voice around it? And there's a lot of questions going on in our country about that. Like,
yes,
how much do we have say over and control and power over our bodies? So Margaret Sanger was born in 1879, and she started this conversation, and she became a nurse so that she could work in the medical field. And she was the one who coined the term birth control. And she was a stand for having birth control and birth education, body education, so that there wouldn't have to be abortion. And that's what my cry is too. I so identify with, okay, we don't like abortion either. So let us teach children about their bodies and how to stay safe, and which is your mission as well, and get to know. And I love it that you've given them books. We had Belly Buttons are not sexual or something, was one of the first books that Mark Schoen, who's a colleague of mine, wrote back in the 1970s. And they were going to print it for him, except they said he had to change the word clitoris. They wouldn't let clitoris in the book. And so it just shows our fear of body parts and bodies, and he refused. So he had to go get it published himself a few years later. So it's kind of, I see that Margaret Sanger was a stand for that, for us to have the language, for have the awareness and the knowledge. And bottom line, in line with your story, is respect. How to respect our own body, say yes and say no, and to not let things happen that take away our relationship with ourselves, because that's where relationships start. And that's what my practice is about too. It's how do you get you with you before you can get you with other.
Right.
So yeah, look up Margaret Sanger, fascinating story. How she had to run off to London or England for a while to hide out because they were after her, but she came back and kept it going. And yeah, she was a really good bad girl.
Mhm. Regina,
Well,
do you have to share? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't want to take this down a political path, but abortion is part of my story as well.
Mhm.
And I was so promiscuous that I had sex with 3 different men in a week, and I woke up and I was pregnant and I didn't know who the father was. And I'm grateful that I had that choice. I don't have any regrets. But when I go back to it, when I drill back down, if I had body safety taught to me, if I hadn't been sexually abused, I wouldn't have been promiscuous. I wouldn't have been willing to just toss my body out there like that. And it does go back to education. So I appreciate that perspective.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Regina, you have something to share?
Yeah, I wanted to share
Oh, yeah.
my artwork that
Yeah.
I posted
Oh, yeah.
on our Facebook group, The Evolving Story of Women.
Yeah.
And I was doing some actual work and I put a couple videos, and here is my eternal feminine essence of women. So I'm working on this. I may work on it a little bit more, but I mean, our spirit is just, we're born from the stars and we are evolving forward. And who knows where we're going,
Yes,
but
thank
we're
you.
going there.
So
Beautiful.
is it in the
Yeah.
process? Are you done with it or are you still in the process? You're gonna add something?
I'm gonna add some more stuff, so I'll keep you posted. Check out our website,
And your
our
coloring
Facebook
book.
page.
Tell them about more about
Oh,
your
my-
coloring.
Oh, yes, and my book, On a Clear Day by Regina.
Mhm. Because Regina also help us with the healing process. We do some healing Sundays, and Regina's book part of the art therapy. So yes, so we all contribute. And if you would like to join our Facebook group, you're welcome to join. And we do some other things besides speakers every month. We have also healing circles that we hosted. Let's see if we have any more questions. Jane, do you want to add something at the end? You want to share something that you did not share yet?
I don't know who the audience is right now,
Mhm.
but if you're a parent and you're going through this, I want you to know you're not alone. If you're a survivor and you're going through this, I want you to know you're not alone. And that we are hoping to create change, and it's not your burden to carry. It really isn't. And you can absolutely reach out to me on Instagram, Jane_@ComplicatedCourage, or reach out to me on my website. I actually do respond. I do. So that's it.
All right, great. Okay.
Can you type your information in the chat, please?
Yeah,
Sure.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
Yeah. So, and also we're gonna send recording to everybody. And I just posted the name of the person who Susan was talking about, Margaret Sanger. So complicatedcourage.com, that's Jane's website. And what's a Facebook group do you have, or you part of?
I'm a moderator
Mhm.
for a survivors group.
Oh,
So
okay.
only survivors, but then I also have access to, if you're a parent, I can send you to the parent groups if you're a parent going through this. Yeah, I'm a moderator, and if you're a survivor and you want to join, you can request to join Taken Innocence, but make sure you answer the 4 questions, because we're very mindful of that. And it's actually a very great, supportive, safe group.
And what's the name of the group you said?
That is called Taken Innocence. I'll put that in the chat.
Taken Innocence.
Mm.
That's a great, great resources. Yeah, thank you. taken innocence for survivors, and for parents, one that for parents.
I don't have that link directly available. Yeah, it's I know that there's 2 parent groups, and then there is one for sibling parents. I'd have to find that one.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying.
All right. Yes.
And I have an organization that's part of our sex therapy conversations around all topics is SEICUS, which is SEICUS. And
What it
it's
stands for?
sex education, in case you need it. No, I don't know. But it's
Okay.
about sex education, and because parents will ask me, when do you start talking to your kids about sex? And I say in the womb, but then SEICUS breaks it down through the therapeutic evaluation of when are kids ready, and how do you talk to kids at certain ages. So if folks are interested in a more clinical view of sex education, it's SEICUS.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Please put it in the chat because I'm having difficulties hearing.
Okay. So Susan, type please. What those letters?
That's what they mean.
No. Just
All right.
how to. Is it a website or?
Yeah,
is it a-
SEICUS.
Okay.
SEICUS.
SEICUS.org.
It's probably .org.
Okay.
Yeah, because I do believe that sex education is really important, that we talk to our kids.
Yeah.
I think it's easier now because there's the television, first of all. The kids are seeing a lot of things on the television, and in commercials, everything, and music. So it really should be easier for parents to talk to their kids about all of these things because it's just everywhere, so.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have it. Don't talk to your kids about sex because then they'll do it.
That's message. Yeah.
But then they'll also turn around and say, talk to your kids about drugs so they won't do it. So, it's just the fear space we live in about being in bodies.
Well, we need to talk about our feelings and our emotions and these things we don't understand, the energy that we have around us, that we need to talk about all that.
Yeah. All right. People saying thank you. Some people have trouble hearing, so they will get a recording because we had no problem on our end, and we are grateful that was no interruption on Jane's end. So
Yeah, was good.
So it was good. All right. Thank you, everybody. We're gonna close for today, and thank you, Jane, very much for your time, for sharing with us.
Yeah.
And we will share your information along with the recording. So anything that we mentioned today, it's gonna be along with the recording to everybody who registered for today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on your platform.
And we'd like to hear more when you have your TEDx talks. So definitely post it on your social media, and we'll hear it.
Yeah.
All right, that's the time for message to get to masses. All right, thank you very much, and have a good day, everybody. Have a good Sunday, and see you next time, next month.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.